On this episode, we are back on the Radial Flyer. If you guys have been following along with this, you may have seen the last episode where we finally got the exhaust finished off. That was a really big kind of one to cross off the list. But another big one is radiator. Obviously, you guys have been asking, how is this thing going to be cooled? Is it air cooled? Is it water cooled? It is water cooled, which is a really neat thing. So it's amazing that we can still utilize a radiator. Obviously, because you guys have seen where this thing sits, we've basically had to shoehorn it in there. So there is no room for a radiator. So I will be putting one up underneath the frame rails. We will be making a sort of custom scoop for it, as well as a louvered panel off the bottom that will obviously protect it from road debris. I'm kind of hoping it's going to act sort of like a Venturi in order to pull air out of the radiator. So we will have two fans up the top. I'll explain that in this episode as we go, creating the brackets and making everything for it. So without further ado, let's get into the episode right now. Before we get into this video, make sure you guys jump over to our website. We do have 2 brand new t-shirt designs on there, and we have a full restock of all of our standard OG logo stuff as well. So jump over, help support, buy us a t-shirt. It helps immensely with the workshop and creating this channel and doing all the content for you guys. So if not, don't worry, just watch it, click us a thumbs up, and that's enough for us. It's cool, you know, no pressure at all. But go fucking buy a t-shirt. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so this is the radiator that we're going to be using in order to cool that Radial 2-liter 3-cylinder airplane motor. Essentially, because we do not have enough room to have it upright and mounted in the back, we are going to put it between the frame rails, and I'm going to show you that in a second, how I'm going to roughly lay it out. Biggest thing too, whenever you're working with an aluminum radiator or a radiator at all and you're trying to kind of custom mount it, as you guys know, it's pretty self-explanatory, but use some cardboard and cover up the fins so you're not damaging these. The last thing you want to do is be putting this in and out and you puncture a hole or do anything. So I've just taped up both sides, making sure it's nice and safe, not going to be able to damage any of the fins. This has provisions here. There's threaded bungs that have been welded in, so we're going to use those to be able to mount this radiator. Now, there's a few different ways we could have done this, but we're very limited on space and kind of height as well. So what's going to happen is, and what we're going to try and achieve is something like that. And what we're going to try and do is, on the bottom of this floor, I'm going to run an aluminum sheet all the way to the back and sort of curve it at the back. So when air comes up, comes through here, it'll hit that back and be forced to have to go through the radiator. The fan obviously being up in here, that's going to help push air through. On the bottom here, I'm probably going to make maybe like a little tiny, just little scoop like that. So the air that's traveling by will hit the scoop, hit the top of this thing and travel in there. So we're going to try and make like a big like frog mouth, or like a, I don't know what you'd call it, just like a big air scoop on the front, in order to try and pull as much air up through here and down and through that way. What I also want to do is under here, I want to louver I'm going to call it the shroud, but I'm going to mold the 4-inch louver, and we're going to try and get as many as we can and open them right up to allow lots of air to be able to be expelled through them. The reason why I want to put a louvering setup on, for 2 reasons. One, I'm thinking that if air is traveling past, it's going to act like a Venturi, helping pull the air through the radiator. Number 2 is we don't want any road debris to come up and actually hit the fins or damage the radiator at all. So that shroud being there with those louvers is obviously going to help protect it. Then on the sides, we can maybe run some nice little dimple dies or something, but if we can make the shroud and the mount all in one piece, then that radiator can go up in there, sit down, and be able to be bolted up through these bungs here. So we're hoping with that large 16-inch electric fan, that's going to really help with keeping it efficient, keeping the water cool. got, so here to here is 805, here to here is 735. Frame rails is back, front 40. 640. So this is what I'm thinking. We got frame rail like that, sort of sits with a little lip. And then we have our radiator that is gonna sit in here. And I'm gonna make a piece that comes down 45-degree bend, traveling along the bottom, 45-degree bend, and up like that. So it's gonna cradle, so we'll have bolts through here, and then the little provision here will actually mount the radiator itself. This will be our louvers across the bottom, and then we are gonna have our electric fan up here, and then the bottom of the floor, and then we'll have sort of a scoop that will travel in. If we were to make this sort of 3D looking, and along this side here, if we were to look underneath, it's gonna go like this. That'll be the side of our frame rail. And then these will be our louvers along here. And then I want to put a few dimple dies along here, just to kind of strengthen this up. So 80 mil, 100 mil, bent down. That's gonna travel different because it's tapered frame rails, which is annoying. So, need to figure out on center where our holes are going to be so we can have those drilled out before we louver it, so we know how close to get to that. And then our frame rails are tapered, which is sort of annoying, so I need to make sure I'm allocating for that. So we have it's a fair bit actually. It's nearly 40 mil. So, I know that my back taper is going to be 105 mil for 45 degree to 45 degree. I wonder if I should build this out of cardboard just to be safe. I don't know. It would make sense. I did make a little jig setup, and I've just used a bit of cardboard as a backing to allow me to mock this up to make sure that it was going to work with my taper that we have in the frame rails. Josh, jump up on that step for me. 1, 2. Thanks, Josh. Ready? 1, 2. 1.
Sad and lonely after what death had done. But like rattlesnakes kicked across the ground. Our true loves were dead and our hearts were full of grief. I was firing, she was gasoline. Good God. I was firing, she was gasoline. But we helped each other out, Lord, to ease some of the pain. Best friends and lovers most of the time. But I would go mad when she would turn mean. I was firing, she was gasoline. Yeah, I was firing, she was gasoline.
So it's kind of hard to see, but we have the layout here, and this is our louver jig setup that we put into the press brake. And what I'm thinking is either louvering the actual panel, or I was also considering doing it in a thinner gauge aluminum and nut-serting it to this panel, just to make it a little bit thinner to allow a little bit more air to expel from here. So what I could do is I could make a little border here and we could cut this out. Once that's cut out, then I could drill a few holes and then we could put a thinner piece down. And what I'm thinking is that there's actually a couple in here. Just some like 1.2, this is 2.5 mil, 1.2 mil, louvered, a little bit easier to work with, and you know, it's a little bit thinner, so it's gonna allow a little bit bigger of a gap in our actual louver itself, and that would allow more air to be able to get removed. Also, what I'm thinking is if the louvers are too much and it's not allowing enough air to come through, we do have this large window that then we could make a little border around and put some mesh in there. So at least the mesh would still be helping with any road debris coming up and hitting it. Kind of just trying to think of a little bit forward thinking if there is any issues with the heat itself. I know moving is going to be totally fine. It's purely just a stationary thing. So I'm going to get the louvers set up. I want to kind of remold them a little bit to open them up a little bit more. The biggest thing is on this one here, this is my 3-inch one. You can see that I've radiused the back edge of it. And our new 4-inch one does not have that. So it has this sort of more rectangle style louver, which I don't like. So I'm just using some of my cardboard here, and I'm trying to make a little bit of a template in order to help me scribe a line and sort of the shape. So you can see we just have this shape here, and what I want to do, if I just draw it out on a Sharpie, is we have a rectangle, and this is kind of a later model style louver that I don't really like. I want something more clamshelled or, you know, similar to that. That would make it look more like an early louver. I'm trying to make a half. Half is a little bit easier than making a full shape. And what I'd like to do is see if I can just freehand sort of a shape like that. So we're gonna go about 5 mil. So 5 mil is gonna be the material we're gonna take off. And I'm just gonna play around with the pen sorta. Okay, so that's gonna allow us to have a much nicer looking louver. I already really like that layout. So there's our piece. What I'm going to try and do is hold it where it would sit, right about there. It is a bit tricky because of the way I've sort of designed that, but I'm just going to use our scribe here. I'll put a little line there so I know that's our center. So I can see that. And now we have this whole piece here that we're going to try and remove. Also, you guys have seen this. If you are following along on our channel, I've just finished off the majority of the floor on this. And the next episode will be welding it in, creating the side panels, the substructure for the body itself so we can channel it. So that's gonna be a really big episode, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to finally get the body on this and really see what it looks like. All right, our sheet is ready to do some bends. I've made my little window that hopefully you guys can just see here with a little beveled edge, and that is gonna be the opening for the radiator. So we will do it in a thinner sheet. I will drill some holes, and we will probably just nut insert the piece on so we can bolt it on and take it off. I'm not gonna cut it out yet until I do all of our bends, just to make it a little bit easier and there'll be less distortion. So these ones are gonna be bent up at 65 degrees. This one's gonna be at 25 degrees. And these two on either end are gonna be at 90 degrees. So once that radiator is sitting in here, this will help it all sort of tighten it up. All right, so we got our little hydraulic ram here. This is what I use to do all my punches and dimple dies. So usually this is probably the max capacity for this, but we are going to see if we can punch through some 2.5 mil alley. Like butter. Beautiful. That should fit through almost. Oh, it's hot. Okay, so first dimple. So we are going to face it in. Kind of doing this backwards as well, but that's okay. The biggest thing too is you want to make sure everything's clean, which this table is not, but just makes for a cleaner dimple. Okay. Boom. So I was going to do this out of aluminum, and unfortunately my only stock piece of aluminum that I had was 2 inches too short, which is disappointing. So we're making it out of steel. Does it matter? Not one bit, because we're probably going to paint the whole thing anyways. So at the moment I am just laying out my louvers roughly. I just want to make sure too that these are, yeah, okay. So I'm going to mark this out with a pen so it's a bit more accurate. Being a bit bigger of a louver, I'm hoping obviously just a bit more airflow through it. That. So you can see how much that frame rail tapers. So that's kind of what we're getting hindered by, is if this was the edge of the louver, which essentially it's going to be, and then when we get up into here, it starts to make contact. So we have a really small lip. It's probably not worth actually putting a bead roll in there. These lights in here sometimes play a lot of tricks on my eyes. Tricks on my eyes. Okay, so now, all right, so I've just done our little grid pattern. I went into the matrix, saw Neo and Morpheus, did some numbers, and I got a rough layout. It's kind of probably hard to understand, but it makes sense to me. I just tried to get maximum amount of louvers in this sheet. I just tried to get maximum amount of louvers in this sheet to obviously maximize the amount of airflow coming through. Now that this is done, we're going to jump over. We got the louver jig set up, and I'm going to go and punch and see how many louvers we get. Well, if you guys have seen us do this before, you know the process here. We got the Gigantor big press brake, and I've got our new and improved 4-inch louver in the jig. I've done some dry passes already, and we are ready to essentially punch some louvers. So the first one is always a little bit nerve-wracking. Just got to figure out where we are as well. I'm going to set the limit on the press as well. Oh, one and done. back breaker. Right, so I've just clecoed our bottom louvered panel on. So what I'm gonna do next is I'll pop this panel off after. I'll drill these out so that we can actually mount the radiator in there. But as of right now, the radiator should, so the cap's gotta come off still, and that will help us sort of sit in a little bit better of a position. But once that's kind of sitting in the spot that it's supposed to, I think it's going to be a really good little area. From here to here, these would be cut off, and then we're going to run the hoses through the rear cross member that's right here. I'm going to drill a couple holes in it. I may even make a new cross member because I really don't like the one that's in there. We have a little bit of air being able to, pass by, I guess. And let's go and put this in and see what it looks like. There's two holes right here, two holes right here, and there's two holes, one there and one there. Can you see where those are? So I just need to lift it up and just roughly in place so I can put the clecos in. Tiny hole, tiny coffee. So let's lift this up and then we'll...
Watch your head, mate. First time on the tools in a few weeks.
Okay, hold it there for 2 seconds.
Back in the day when I used to work with an electrician, I'd be like, I'd say to these sparkers when I was an apprentice, I can't find the hole. And he goes, that's because there's no hair around it. You want to try it out?
It's pretty crazy. You were once a tradesman. Okay, I'll get over you. Where are they? Okay, I got it now. I need to find out.
Lining up a couple of holes.
Boom. How's that look?
Classic.
Something else. And then hopefully that'll allow the heat to come out. Trap it, put a big fan up in there, and then I need to make a big mouth or a scoop that comes down that grabs air and kills rabbits. Okay, so we have it mounted in place where I think it's going to go. I like the height of it. It could go up if we needed to. But what I'm going to do is just put it down on the tires, see how low it is. It isn't definitely lower than the exhaust or that rear sort of cross member engine cradle, which is okay. And what I'm thinking is, because the fan's going to go up in here on the top of the radiator, I want to make like a sheet that's going to maybe come from, say, here, something we can pick up on here, make a couple of tabs, and the sheet would follow this the whole way to the back of the radiator and then have like a 45-degree bend so that when air travels in there, by the time it gets to the back, it's got nowhere to go and is sort of guided into the radiator. The big 16-inch fan that's in there will act as the pusher to push the air through. On the bottom, I've just bent this up and I've left it on the angle, but what I would like to do is actually maybe design something that kind of came down so it's sat up flat up here, right up into where the tanks are, and then maybe it drops down and doesn't go any lower than this, but kind of just comes down and maybe has like a little scoop so that naturally as the air comes by, it'll want to go up the scoop, hit the contact point up here, and then be driven in through the radiator. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but I think the logic is there. It's just whether or not we're going to be able to get enough air. So if it's moving, I don't think we're going to have any issues. It's just when it's stationary and we're waiting at like a set of lights, and this fan is in here and it's pushing air through. We want to, there's not going to be air moving in here. So we're kind of going to be relying on that 2500 CFM of that fan itself to just be naturally pulling air and pushing it through, which is ideally what they do. So I think it'll be okay.
Someday you'll come running. Somehow rivers calling. You'll see I'll be longing. I'm free. Come hell or high water, I'm gonna make you love me. Come hell or high water, I'll bring your blue skies down.
All right. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to see when you tack them, but I'll talk as I go through. Oh yeah, that's pretty comfortable. Except for that's right in my way. Well, I should be able to wrap my head around it a little bit. What's everyone using for new welding masks out there? I love this little Miller one, but the strap, I've gone through like 4 of the head, let's call it like the head strap, the piece that actually connects to the helmet. And I just keep going through them. I don't know why. Must be too rough with the bloody thing. All right, running 150 amps, 2.4 tungsten, not the 3.2. I think just when I'm doing 2.5 mil, that's sufficient enough. 2.4 filler rod as well. And I'm just gonna do a few tacks just so it's tacked into place. And then, like I said, we can remove the clecos, drop the whole thing down, take it over the table, pull this louver piece out, pull all the blue plastic off. I can't remember what that name is for the plastic. It'll come to me. And then we can fully weld it inside and out. And then we need to figure out whether or not we're gonna throw a few louvers in here, just cause. Or dimple dust, sorry. And then we need to figure out how we're gonna make this scoop that's gonna kind of catch all the air. Think of like a big basking shark. That is a terrible analogy, but you know, they just go through and catch all their, you know, they catch everything. All right, so I'm gonna try and get a tack on this guy here. Wow. So I've had to do a reset on this welder. Due to that, you can hear the frequency is crazy. And would love to try and tie it into this side. Beautiful. Wow, let's try and get one on that side too, why not? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. I'm going to let this cool down for 2 seconds. I will end up, not exactly sure how I'm gonna fit this. Would be cool to use little rivets, blind rivets, but because we do want to be able to remove this, I'm probably going to use the same countersunk, flathead, stainless bolts that we've used throughout the rest of the car. They're like the tiny little 4 mil ones. I think I'll use those, and I'll just make sure they don't protrude too far past so we don't hinder any spacing or contact to the radiator itself. Okay, so that's done. We can put that over there. Let's pull this off. I'm not worried about trying to keep this on for scratching and stuff because I'm probably gonna end up sanding the whole thing and painting it. Whether or not I paint it that really neat sort of aircraft green primer color to really sort of tie in that piece. It may stick out too much though. I'm not sure if it'll look kind of weird, so it may just end up going black. But yeah, we'll come up with something. Beautiful. I love when you get a good weld. It does make me happy. So I'm just using the, I think this is probably 60 grit. I'm just kissing the welds and then just going it over with that 80 grit on the DA just to smooth it out. See, got wax on there. Now that's gonna help when I go on here. And you can see how fast it cuts it without actually sticking to the pad itself. So, and you can see I've come off, so I just got a little bit more to do, and then I'm gonna leave it, and then I'll help dress that with the 80 grit on the DA. So now you can see how quick and easy that was. and I still have tons of life left in this. That's just the wax in there, so it's still helping me be able to go without gumming it up. And it got a nice smooth edge on all surfaces. So now I'm just gonna come over with the DA with a fresh 80 grit on there. When I use this, I will use it flat, and I'm gonna roll the edge. Come in, flat, roll the edge, flat, roll the edge. Come up here, roll, 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 roll. That way, the surface of here is staying flat to this, so I'm not cutting or making any grooves, and then we'll smooth it out. You get the idea what I'm trying to create. Sorry, that's loud. And it looks really, really cool. It's more the function over looks at the moment. I had notched just these little areas out, and that's just part of the little frame rails that are there. And so it hugs it really nice. And again, if I'm not putting anything there, when this is in place, you can imagine that. Let's just use this piece of cardboard here. If I have a subtle break, this is going to be the top of the floor, right? So we're going to be working with something that's going to look like that, or even come forward so it goes right to the core. But this is what I'm trying to do, is that if we have a mouth open like that, the air will travel underneath the van, get picked up by this scoop, come up, make contact to this, but there's going to be nothing, you know, it's going to be really smooth. I'll probably even roll this edge in the slip roller, and then all the air will get forced through the radiator, through that electric fan. That's just the idea. And then we can make sort of a nice mouth that'll come off of it. So let's take this over. Just gonna grab our Clico. Don't really need that anymore. It's just so I didn't put my fingers and damage the fins. It fits really nice and tight, which is excellent. Okay, so Josh is back. Should try and scare him. Right by the fridge. I'll just grab a piece of wood. got him too. Oh. Very, very sneaky.
I am very, very sneaky, sir. I see that.
All right. Yes, the nut does make contact, so it's not going to look as flash and smooth as. I think that's neat. I'm going to wrap that up there, and we'll come back to it, and with some fresh ideas. If you guys have any, again, please let me know in the comments. But once this is in, and we kind of got that mouth figured out and all that, then we can start plumbing it. We can get some water to the motor and stuff, and a couple more steps here and there, and we're getting real close to being able to fire this thing up. And I know everybody wants to hear it, including myself and Ben and Josh and everybody around these units that have come in and seen this motor. I think it's just going to sound so cool. So it'll be really exciting to finally hear that thing breathe. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit notifications, and we will see you next week on Bennett's Customs. Have a great weekend.